Hello everybody, thank you so much for watching our presentation of the 2017-2018 winter forecast. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much. Good evening, I'm Mark Spencer alongside Brian Ivy. Again, thank you so much for watching our forecast, what has got to be probably the biggest event for us of the year.
Yeah, we always love our winter forecast and it gets good traction with everybody. Everybody wants to know, is it going to snow a lot?
How much snow am I going to get? Yeah, everybody wants to know. That's exactly right. It's really something that we enjoy putting together. It takes some time. Although this year we had a little bit different setup this year with the live Q&A and
absolutely.
How about those graphics? Boy, they were great. Shout out to Denver and Murray for helping us with those. Thank you very much, everybody.
It's been great so far.
It's been really good.
Some of your comments as well. Thank you for following along, and for everybody that has shared this video, we appreciate it. If you like some of the content that we produce here at NeoWeather, please, it means so much to give us the thumbs up,
yes,
comment, and share away. That helps engagement for everybody on Facebook.
Absolutely, and we're always posting stuff too, so always some good content there to be shared. We didn't really get too many questions about the forecast or anything, believe it or not. But hey, thank you so much for the guys that did comment. We've been following along since the show started, of course. We're just wanting to make sure we were prepared for anything as well. But again, thank you for the comments. Thank you for watching the forecast as well.
Absolutely. We had live updates throughout on Twitter as well, so you can see some of those live tweets if you missed anything. Of course, with Facebook, this video will be posted and stay up there, so you can always go back and watch it later. And we're going to post a YouTube link and an article, and we'll share that. So everybody that wasn't able to make it tonight for the live show will be able to see the whole thing at another point.
Absolutely. It'll be on our website as well. We'll make sure to get it on the website. We did get a question there from David Sauer. David, of course, a longtime follower of us. He wants to know about lake effect events coming for the winter months here locally in Northeast Ohio, say for the secondary belt. So we're thinking above average lake effect snowfall this year, right?
Yeah, we had this very warm into summer, start to fall, and just now are we starting to cool back down to more typical conditions. In fact, we got that freeze watch, our freeze advisory and frost advisory here for tonight. So it's really feeling cool across the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes and Midwest. But going into this winter, we have these warmer than normal lake temperatures. And if we have some big cold outbreaks over the next several weeks and couple months here over these warmer lakes, we're probably going to do pretty good for lake effect.
Absolutely, yeah. So we are looking at maybe an above average season for lake effect here in northeastern Ohio because the lake water is so warm. It didn't even freeze last year.
Specific event. I mean, if you have a wind where it's coming out of the northwest, yes, the secondary snow belt. Areas of North Royalton, Parma, maybe even into Lorain, down to Medina can do very well with snowfall. But of course, if you have a more westerly wind, it's going to go more towards the greater typical main snow belt.
The primary snow belt, that's right. It's really hard to say exactly, of course, where lake effect snow will set up in advance because you got to get your ducks in a row, as Dick Goddard would say. The winds have got to be in the right condition. You got to have the right setup and all of that. So it's tough to say in advance, but we do think lake effect snow-wise, we are going to see more lake effect than normal. And that would include the secondary snow belt for part of it as well. Again, however, the secondary snow belt, depending on the lake, the wind setup across the lake at that particular time.
Sometimes you can do better in the secondary snow belt. And that goes for pretty much all of the Great Lakes. Lake Superior, Michigan, you could do pretty well as well, maybe even in towards upper New York State, the Buffalo area coming off Erie and then coming off Ontario. Probably a pretty good lake effect season for everybody, but we're going to have more system snow likely as well.
Yeah, that's true. So, more system snow, and usually what that happens after the system passes through is we'll see the lake effect behind it set up because the winds are generally a little bit more favorable out of the northwest after a system passes through the Great Lakes. So with that said, that means a little bit more snow after you get the snow too. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch a little bit.
It could definitely be. We're most likely going to have a more active pattern across the Great Lakes and the Ohio Valley back into portions of the Midwest than what we had the last couple winters. Now, it doesn't mean that every system is going to be a bunch of snow, but we increase those odds. If we have the cold air in place, you're probably going to see some decent snowstorms across the country. In fact, we're seeing our first snowstorm across extreme upper Midwest in towards northwestern the UP of Michigan, northern Wisconsin, northern Minnesota here as we go through tomorrow into Friday.
Yeah, they're getting some snow.
Yeah.
Almost a little late for them, actually.
Right. Oh, yeah.
But actually, it's not too far outside of average for them,
typically
to be honest.
Mid-October.
Mid-October. Somewhere right about this time, they're usually seeing their first snow. So that's really not outside of the ordinary. So we're looking at a couple questions here. Eric wants to know if his school will be closed. I'm going to say no because you're not in school, Eric, but thank you for joining us there, buddy.
I'm not sure. I mean, I think I feel like I have the authority. Your school's closed for the rest of the year.
Well, there you go. His school is closed for the rest of his life. Thanks for joining us, Eric. Michelle Summer asked, what's the possibility for snow this Thanksgiving for the Akron-Canton area and here in Ohio?
Yeah, well, as of right now, we're looking at a cooler November than normal. Now, we can't tell you exactly when a snowstorm's going to come 3 weeks out to about a month
almost
out
a month
right now.
Almost a month away. Can you
and you know
that?
what? It seems like it was just a middle
We're
of summer.
2 months from Christmas today, too, by the way. I'm sorry. I know I'm not ready for Christmas yet either. I don't even know what I want for Christmas. I don't have a Christmas list. I got nothing. So I'm not ready for it either.
Plenty of time to go see Santa and get that list in order. But yeah, I think definitely it will be cooler than average, certainly cooler than what we saw the last month and a half in November. So the chance is there to have a little bit of snowfall. Hey, if you get things right, it just might line up and happen near Thanksgiving. But guys, chime on in. You guys like a white Christmas or not? Most of the people that I talk to are like, I don't like snow, but at least if it snowed on Christmas and gave it that magical Christmas time feel, I would really appreciate it.
I do like snow on Christmas. Yeah, it always has a nice, feel to it. It's really nice. Let's see here. So Carrie Brown Dotson asked, blizzard possibilities this winter. Blizzards are kind of tough. So the Neowise. I hope you guys did you guys like the Neowise questions?
Hopefully
did you like the questions? Right. We had a ton of fun putting that together, actually. If you liked it, let us know in the comments. We'd love to get your feedback on that. But question 3 was, what is a blizzard, Brian?
Yes, so a blizzard, many people think of it as just extremely heavy snow and it's blowing and it's just accumulating 4 feet in some spots. Now, of course, I'm exaggerating a little bit. But no, a lot of these different weather advisories and warnings and whatnot have specific criteria. So you're looking for multiple hours at a time with certain wind and certain snow requirements, but no snow actually needs to be falling.
That's right.
As long as it's just blowing. Reducing the visibility.
Officially, a blizzard has to reduce visibilities below a quarter mile for at least 3 miles an hour, and the winds have to be sustained at least 35 miles per hour. Notice, it does not have to be snowing. So, as far as a blizzard goes, again, it's really, really hard to say whether or not we'll see something. That comes with generally a big snowstorm and then lots of wind behind it. Usually we'll see once a year somewhere we'll get something blizzard-like conditions. We do have a few more questions coming in. Brett's asking about the forecast for Virginia, and we're also getting a couple mid-Atlantic ones. So we are going to pull that up here for you.
Yeah, if you want to pull up the graphic, that'd be great. As far as the Mid-Atlantic goes, you're generally going to be in a battle zone. That's going to be between the southeast ridge that we mentioned several times throughout the video, and then some cold air intrusions coming in most likely from southern Canada in through the Great Lakes. So it's going to kind of be hit and miss at times. Probably a little bit more on the warmer side of things compared to average, but most likely cooler than what we were last winter. So if you're in Roanoke, if you're in Richmond, definitely the battle zone. If you're south of that, most likely you're not going to see any snow or very little snow, below average. But it could get lucky and have enough cold air in place with the system moving through to potentially see a snowstorm or two, even if it's just a couple inches here or there. But most likely below average snowfall and still a little warmer than what we are for a typical year. But once you get north a little bit into PA, that starts to be where it's out of the battle zone and more into pretty typical winter weather, either right around average snowfall, if not even a more snowfall than average, and temperatures should be pretty close to average, if not even maybe a little bit below average.
There you go. So that has that. Eric Zender is running about Northwest Ohio, and so is Roxy. Hello, Roxy. Thank you for asking. So we're going to pull that forecast up next for you guys. Absolutely. And I just got to find it. That's going to be...
Was I? Bring it on in.
Midwest. Yeah, and I got to move it too. So it's twofold.
Sometimes 2 steps is just too much for me. There we
go.
So definitely going to see a more active weather pattern as we go through this winter than what we saw the last couple. If you remember back about 2 or 3 winters ago where we had systems what seemed like twice a week, with even one of those being like pretty big, sizable systems, we're not maybe expecting quite like that, but it's going to be a return from that to be a little bit more familiar. Frequent systems, more cold air coming down, a more active storm track coming in out of the plains, out of the Rockies, coming in from the Oklahoma Panhandle as well. So we do expect more snow than what we saw the last couple years, for sure, across this area.
Absolutely.
And overall, you're probably going to see the core of the cold really come down across the western lakes, the eastern portions of the Midwest here into western Michigan, Wisconsin, maybe even northern Illinois. There could be several big cold air outbreaks where you're dealing with those just horribly yucky wind chills, and maybe even some decent snowstorms as well. It just depends how things line up. We've seen really cold winters in the past with really not too much snow. We've seen really snowy winters that you look back and it's like, it really wasn't that cold. We just kind of had temperatures around 30 degrees and a lot of systems.
That's absolutely right. And Roxy, you're welcome. I'm glad we got to go over that for you. Nick Tinnick, we know Nick. Nick, thanks for joining us there, buddy. He has a question. He wants to know why we're trending away from some of the analogs a little bit. He says a lot of them are showing a third mild winter in a row, and he's kind of wondering what we're seeing.
So as far as the analogs go, for everybody that's not familiar with what that is, an analog year is a year in the past that has a lot of similarities to what we've seen right now in the current, as far as weather patterns over the whole globe, as far as what we're seeing in the Pacific and the Atlantic Oceans, different atmospheric circulations as well. When you take all that information together and look at years in the past that had similar results, that's called an analog year. So yeah, we saw some analog years that showed it pretty darn cold, and some that were extremely warm as well. It's kind of a mix of both.
Yeah. The big thing is that we really don't get 3 mild winters in a row. We don't really have anything to go back on in the past. So for us, it's kind of difficult to say, yeah, you know, we're going to see a third mild winter in a row based on what? Okay, well, the La Nina we're thinking is going to be at least weak to maybe moderate through at least early January. Just for a short period, then we're going to get out of it. So overall, the whole winter, seasonally, as we average it out, which is what we do with an outlook for a season, it's an average. It may not be as cold, but we think we're going to see colder air get into, like Brian just said, parts of the Midwest and Great Lakes, for sure.
Yeah, even where we're thinking some of that colder air is going to be, we're not talking about extremely below average, where you're locked in the freezer, even portions of Minnesota and North Dakota in towards the UP of Michigan. We'll see some breaks, but we expect it to be dramatically colder than the last couple winters, and most likely a decent amount below average at times throughout the course of the winter. So,
yeah, and a lot of it's going to come in the first half of the winter. So the first half of the winter we think is going to be fairly active, and that's probably where we'll see a good amount of our snow systems and cold air. As we get into the second half of the winter, it gets to be a little bit in question depending on if that La Nina starts fading away. If it does get as strong as what some of the analogs and forecasts are saying, great. If it doesn't, then it's not going to get quite as cold. But at that point, we don't really know. We get into that like neutral pattern, or what some of the forecaster folks refer to as La Nada, which is nothing. But
there's just so many different variables that could potentially take over.
You also have different variables like the QBO, which for a big term is the quasi-biennial oscillation, which is a tropical wind pattern.
Fun words.
Fun words. It's actually something newer that's being kind of put into and implemented into to winter forecast. So it's something we look at. There's also blocking patterns. You've probably heard of the NAO or the AO. That's the North Atlantic Oscillation, the Atlantic Oscillation. It's hard to say whether or not where those set up and how strong they get. Those are a little bit more tricky to pinpoint what happens with those. So those are our variables a little bit.
Yeah, sometimes we'll see those patterns really adjust within a week or two out, and we kind of have to play that by ear, where maybe we're forecasting a general positive phase, and then all of a sudden it takes a quick negative, and you get a big cold dump into the eastern United States. So
yeah.
A lot of those really can't be factored in a ton when you're doing a seasonal forecast. It matters a lot more when you're trying to look maybe a week or two out. And even when we've seen some of these really warm analog years, we are taking into account that it looks like, as of right now, there's much better support with the negative QBO, which typically sets up better blocking, which typically sets up more colder air coming into the country. So it's just tough to agree more so with some of the analogs that are promoting warmer weather as of right now. But one of the things we do have to kind of keep in mind is the strength of the southeast ridge. We've seen that be pretty strong.
That is something that's kind of been the
caveat,
the biggest caveat, I think, amongst winter forecasts. And we've watched several people put winter forecasts together. Some meteorologists discussing it on like Twitter and things like that.
Sure.
And it's been the biggest concern I've seen so far to date is how strong does the southeast ridge get? How much of an influence is it going to have? If that gets a lot stronger, it's going to change everybody's forecast a little. Just very closely. In Southeast Ohio, I'm very familiar with Southeast Ohio. My grandparents went there. I went to college down there. It gets to be very difficult, and you're here, and 5 miles north it's doing something different, and 5 miles south it's doing something different. And it's just, it gets to be difficult sometimes based on the system. But as far as that goes, I think overall you'll probably be a little bit colder and maybe a little bit more above average under precipitation. What type of precipitation?
To be determined.
Kind of to be determined right now. But could see a little more snow. Roxy asked if we're going to see ice storms. It's hard to predict that. Again, that depends on the specific setup. The southeast ridge will come into play there because that's your warm air pump. Think of the southeast ridge as your warm air pump. It's bringing warm air and moisture out of the Gulf across the Gulf Coast states, keeping them warm for the winter. But it's also fueling storms that start riding along the edge of that ridge. It's pumping moisture into those cold storms. So
a lot of times when you do have that battleground, you can see those decent ice makers.
Sometimes.
It just depends.
Yeah. Let's see. David Sauer asks if we'll have a slower trend for Lake Erie to freeze over. Lake Erie is the shallowest of the Great Lakes. We'll probably will. I don't think the lake is going to freeze over entirely this year. Generally, from year to year, it doesn't freeze over.
Yeah, it has to be one of the really cold.
It's got to be pretty cold, and you got to have the prolonged cold air like we did 3 and 4 years ago.
We've seen some extremely cold winters, and we'll have maybe 5 days that are just a little bit warmer, and you'll break up half that ice just like that, and next thing you know, you can't refreeze it.
Yeah. So, and again, because of the shallow waters.
Sure.
But I don't think we'll see the lake freeze over. Generally, the western basin's the first to freeze over because it's usually typically very shallow. The eastern basin is usually the very last part to freeze over because that's actually the deepest part of the lake. But thanks for asking, David. Christina asks about Nashville, Tennessee. And Nashville's kind of the battleground here. I'll pull up the map again here real quick. And again, that's kind of the battleground area, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, it's going to depend. You have to get a pretty strong blast of cold air to come on down, probably in the wake of a good cold front with a strong low pressure system. And we just saw this kind of a pattern actually move through just a couple days ago that has allowed for much cooler air than we've seen in a long time across the Tennessee Valley. So you can see it's going to be generally near average temperatures in precip. I would trend a little bit above average when it comes to temperatures and right around average there with precipitation overall. But it's all about the strength of the warm bubble air that we expect over Florida and the Carolinas and even into Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi. So if that pushes further north, you're definitely going to be dealing with a more warmer winter that's just not going to be anything to write home about. But if we can get a couple of those cold air intrusions, it might still be a little warmer overall. But if you get a system moving through, you could still get some decent snow and have a couple of really cold days in there as well. So probably cooler than what we saw last year. That's probably a good bet.
Yeah, and again, you're in that battleground there, so you're going to want to keep a close eye on the forecast throughout the winter, rather, because you could see some times where you get some ice or just some plain rain or maybe even some snow, too. Let's see, but Christina, thanks for asking. We're going to skip Melanie. Melanie, I'll get back to you because we got a couple people asking about Ohio again. But Shelley asked about Minnesota. Near Fargo. Fargo's in North Dakota, so, but we'll pull up that particular forecast here. Give me 1 second to get that pulled up.
Sure. Nice to see all the questions and comments. We appreciate it. If you have anything that you want to know about the winter forecast at all, or even just a general weather question, make sure to shoot us. We're more than happy to shoot it in there. We're more than happy to help out and answer any kind of questions for you. But what about the northern plains into the western portions of the Midwest here? We're going to be colder than normal, certainly across Minnesota. I think it's going to be slightly colder than normal for North Dakota, so obviously that's going to feature some pretty cold weather. But you're not going to be anything extremely cold, more towards like Rapid City down into Omaha. We will have some Clipper systems that bring some snow. We will probably have a couple of Colorado Rocky systems that will track generally west to east across this area. that'll bring a decent amount of snowfall across portions of this area. But I think the biggest portion of the cold and snow is definitely going to be across Minnesota into Wisconsin, down across Lake Michigan.
That's right. So we'll go through a couple more of this because we got questions repeating now. We've already, Donnie, thanks for the question about Central Virginia. Unfortunately, we already covered Virginia. You're going to be generally a little...
It'll be in the battleground.
There in the Charlottesville area.
A little bit on the warmer side, I think, and near average precipitation as of right now. But
so
you can go back and watch this at a later time and get all of the full information on the Mid-Atlantic that we just explained. So that would be definitely great. But let's take a look back at, you pulling up Ohio here?
Yeah, I'm going to pull it up right here. Just give me a second here.
All right, thanks guys. Of course, we are an Ohio-based weather company, so we're more than happy to deal with all of our Ohio friends, answering any kind of questions that you have about the area here. Definitely expecting a colder winter than we saw the last couple years. There could be some really decent lake effect, guys, for portions of northeast Ohio, especially the early portion of this winter. Even last year, we had some pretty good amounts of lake effect snow in the snow belt, where if you went outside of the snow belt, you saw hardly anything compared to what we normally would deal with in a typical winter. But it should be cold. We should have more systems that affect western Ohio as well. It's going to be more of the battleground for the southern portion of the state, Cincinnati. You could deal with some cold and snow. You could also have some warmer stretches as well. It's going to depend. It's going to probably average out more typical to a normal winter across southern Ohio.
That's right. Blaine, I'll leave the graphic up there for a minute. You're asking about weather for Michigan, so you can see cold. And if you're along of course, the Lake Michigan shore or the Lake Huron shore, the southern parts of those, you're going to have a little bit more active lake effect than usual. We're going to see some above average snow for Michigan as well, with frequent systems moving through the area, especially early on in the season. As we get to the second half of the season, it may quiet out. We'll have to keep an eye on that. But that covers that. Let's see. Jason's asking about Florida. He's going to Florida late November. How warm do you think it will be? Kind of hard to tell exactly how warm it's going to be in Florida a month from now, it could be, I would say it's probably going to be near average.
We were looking at temperatures in Florida today, and it was in the mid-60s.
They were in the mid-60s. It was a little chilly right now.
One of the big cold fronts that dropped down, first one in a while. But
absolutely,
overall, we should have a little bit more of a colder November, so the chances there that you have another big cold front that drops down. But overall, I'd say probably lows in the 60s to upper 50s, and highs in the upper 70s to lower 80s. Depends, of course, where in Florida exactly you're going.
All right. Well, for our folks here in Missouri and Arkansas, that's going to be John Sawyer and Brandy. Thank you for the questions.
Thanks, guys.
So here's what we're looking at. So let's cover Missouri first. Sure. We're looking at southwest Missouri, which is going to be right here over my shoulder. So right in here, generally. Notice you're at the western edge of that battleground area. These mixed precipitation events will generally start over here. You could see some ice. If you see ice here, you know that can be pretty detrimental. Sometimes you can get some significant ice accumulation here because this is where it all starts. This is where that warm air comes up from the south and cold air comes up from the northwest, and it all comes together right here. And that can get pretty detrimental. We've seen that in the past. It's possible to have an event or two like that here. Otherwise, we're looking at maybe some snow, especially for the northern part of the state. You'll see colder than usual conditions and maybe a little above average snow. But for much of the south, we're looking at generally average conditions for the winter. We're really not looking at anything too warm, too cold for much of the area, including much of Arkansas. Now, if you're in the northern part of Arkansas, you're at the southern fringe of that mixed precipitation event. That'll just depend on where that system is and what the track is going to be at the time as to whether or not you get some of that mixed precipitation or just plain old rain, too. Mm-hmm. If you're along the coast, warm and generally dry, again, that's that southeast ridge. So nice down there if you're going to the Gulf Coast for the wintertime.
It really should be. And now if we get a system that comes out of the panhandle and it taps into some Gulf Coast moisture, you'll get your rain and snow across portions of New Orleans, back into Shreveport, and even across Tallahassee and whatnot. I think if we had to really hedge here and go different than average across Texas, it would probably be a little drier than normal, a little bit warmer than normal. Typically with these La Nina patterns, generally the south is a little bit more on the warm side, and the north's a little bit on the colder compared to average side of things, and also more precipitation across the Ohio Valley, back into the Midwest, and a little bit more dry, and especially with what we're expecting to be a very dry and warm Four Corners area across Las Vegas and LA, across portions of Arizona, Phoenix area as well. I think if that expands eastward a little bit, that could definitely be a story where we're seeing Texas have a little bit more of a dry spell.
Yeah, that's very true. The last question we have unanswered right now comes from Barbara. Hello, Barbara. She wants to know about the secondary snow belt in Ohio. We were kind of actually talking about this at the beginning of our Q&A here, so if you missed out on that, generally it's kind of hard to predict how much the secondary snow belt is going to get in terms of lake effect snow. Is it going to be above average? Is it going to be below average and your normal? And it's because the secondary snow belt is more dependent on the wind direction and duration. So it's really hard to tell. We kind of have to treat that more on an event-by-event case, even with lake effect snow in the primary snow belt. However, we do know that, at least early on, we're probably going to see more active lake effect. So it's very possible the secondary snow belt gets in on some of that, depending on the wind conditions and some other things. I'm sure you've heard the phrase, if you have your ducks in a row, if they line up, you could definitely get in on some secondary snow, especially early on in the season, because the lake is definitely warmer than average. It didn't freeze over last winter. It's been warm from last fall on, basically. So any big cold shots there we get coming across that warm lake, it won't take much to really get lake effect snow going. Actually, if you look at today, we had that nice southwest wind going across the lake, and there was rain all the way up the lake into Buffalo, and just all day Buffalo got lake effect rain. It had been much colder, maybe 10, 12 degrees. We'd be looking at Buffalo getting pummeled with heavy, wet lake effect snow. They would be getting buried right now. It'd be a big story today. But what are they getting? They're getting rainfall. So
that's the amazing thing about weather. It just can be a difference of maybe one little variable between absolutely nothing and something that you're going to tell your kids about one day.
Absolutely. And we've seen those big powerhouse lake bands hit Buffalo just a few years ago, where it dumped, snow up to the second floor of houses and stuff. People can get out in days. That's absolutely insane. So it's something that we kind of got to treat on an event-by-event basis a little bit, because we don't exactly know way in advance what the winds are going to do. You get another system that moves through, that could change the winds just a little bit, and all of a sudden you got your band shifting. It doesn't take much sometimes to do that. So those are things we all watch. Nick says he's a little worried about lake temp. We're going to have to watch that too. But if we get a lot of this cold and dry air, then the lake temperature will go down.
Sure.
So at that point, then you're kind of worried about it too, in terms of if you're looking for lake effect snow. Okay, now it's going to take a little bit more to get that lake effect snow going. But
you need the right type of wind direction coming across the lake, and that varies at different levels of the atmosphere. So just if we settle into a colder pattern and there's no fronts moving across that's going to change the wind direction, make it come out of the northwest or any kind of northerly direction, then we're probably not looking really at too much lake effect. And it could cool off the lake temperature enough to where it's not going to be a huge factor. But we have seen good lake effect events with the right setup, even when the lake is almost all covered with ice. So it really just depends.
Yeah, it really does depend. So those are things we're going to watch, especially early on here, coming into November. Those are things we really monitor closely, because they'll kind of give us a clue as to what to expect going over the next week and a half, sometimes even 2 weeks, in terms of a pattern. So if something comes in and kind of sets up, we can pick up on that.
Sure.
And that really helps us with the forecast. So it's just one of many things we kind of monitor as we go through the winter.
For right now, we're settling into a colder pattern. It looks like the beginning of next week, another system will move across the upper Midwest and towards the western portions of the Great Lakes. That might be another snowmaker for maybe Minnesota, Wisconsin, the UP of Michigan as well.
That's right. And Nick is actually asking what we think November is looking like. We actually just answered that question there for you, Nick, but thanks for asking.
Summarizes in nicely.
Yeah, there you go. So that works out pretty good. November will kind of be an interesting month here in Ohio. Generally, we don't average much snow until we get towards late month. So we're going to start out kind of cold. We could see some snow. I don't foresee any big snow right now for November, at least through the first half.
Nothing on our radar, pun intended, of course.
Yeah.
But, next week we could see first flakes.
We could see some first flakes. Yes, very true. It's not going to accumulate. Heck, we still have a growing season right now, though we do have some freeze warnings out for much of Ohio and some frost advisories out. But for right now, at least through this afternoon, much of Ohio hasn't even seen a freeze yet. We're still in the growing season. We're 2 weeks late.
And what about the leaves, guys? They're just really turning.
They're just now starting to turn.
I remember when I was a kid filling up a bunch of pumpkin bags with leaves before Halloween because they were almost all falling throughout the yard.
That's right.
And hardly anything this year.
That's right. So it's it's been a different kind of year for that, but
it's amazing how much of a factor weather really has on everything.
That's very true. Yeah, the late summer and fall heat there kind of extended things some.
Yeah, we had that cool stretch from the second half of August towards the first half of September.
Yeah,
and we certainly
now we warmed up. We flipped.
Goodness.
So, but hey, we'll take it there. Let's see. Robert says thanks for the forecast. Always sending us. You're very welcome, Robert. Thanks for joining us. We're going to wrap this up here in a couple minutes, but if you do have any last-minute questions, get them posted now so we can answer them for you.
And we'll make sure to go back in the comments if there's anybody that asks questions or comments after we're done. We'll make sure to try to give you a good response there as well. And again, as we mentioned at the beginning, this will be posted on all of our social media platforms, and we'll have the link and an article with the video up on our website as well. So
Absolutely.
if you have any friends or family that have not seen this that would be interested, make sure to give that a share. Definitely appreciate that. And if you are a snow contractor and you like the sounds from what you saw during our commercial and you want to help save some time and money, definitely get in contact with us. We'd definitely be happy to work with you and become partners with your snow and ice business, providing some accurate forecasts.
That's absolutely right. And that segues into the nice comment. Wayne has the comment of the night here. Question of the night, actually.
There you go.
How many times do you guys think I will have to plow on the east side of Cleveland this year? So I'm going to answer this. I'm going to answer this question here. We're going to spin the big wheel of wonder, and we're going to come up with at least once. I really wish I could answer that question for you, though.
Great accuracy. That's all I can say right there.
I really wish we could answer that question for you, but unfortunately I can't, because you may have to plow multiple times during one event. And
I want to take a guess.
It's so hard. I'm gonna take a guess. I'm gonna say 75 times.
75.
Wayne, if you'd let me know how many times you plowed in the spring, I'd love to know, because actually I am kind of curious how many times guys plow.
See, I guess that does depend. Is it per event or is it per just one portion of the snowstorm where you're going out and then you come back in? So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
So we got 40 and we got, what, 75?
I got 40 and 75.
Okay.
Yeah, if you can let us know sometime in March, that'd be awesome. I'd love to hear from you. My mom and dad are watching. Hello. They say, great job. Thank you very much. I knew they were watching beforehand, so figured I'd give them a shout out there. They tell me I need to get my Christmas list ready, too. So.
Yes, Santa's going to be disappointed.
Get right on it. All right. Again, we'll take a couple more minutes for questions, and if you have them, post them now. If not, we're going to wrap up the live Q&A here shortly. As Brian said, again, we're going to have the forecast available on YouTube. We'll actually have the link just posted shortly right after the Q&A. It'll also be on our website as well. You can check it out in there all winter long.
We really appreciate all of you guys joining us here today, sharing, commenting, asking questions. It's definitely the success that we were looking for. Try to make the winter forecast a big event every year and try to innovate every year to make it a better experience for everybody. So again, thank you very much. It's definitely appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you, Marissa, for joining us. She says hello.
Hi,
Wayne says last year they were only out 7 times. The year before 6.
Okay.
So if we go out 40 and 75, boy, Wayne, you're real busy.
Hey.
Marissa says she missed most of the forecast. Don't worry, it's going to be on YouTube here shortly. We'll have the link on Facebook here shortly, and it'll also be on our website here later tonight, too. So you'll be able to see it.
That's going to go into more detail on a couple of things that we discussed during the forecast. We'll have that all on our website here in the coming days with this video as well.
Absolutely. So,
any more questions?
Wayne says at 75 he would lose his mind. I understand. That's a lot of plowing. Chris is asking about the Northeast United States. You want to take a few seconds to go over it?
Sure, absolutely.
All right, we can do that. Let me get that pulled up just real quick.
Should be a decent amount colder than what we saw last winter. There's going to be a decent amount of cold air bottled up in Canada. It's going to come down off and on throughout the course of the winter. We're not going to see a consistent freezer door open in towards the Great Lakes in the Northeast, but we do expect it to certainly be colder than what we saw in the last couple of years, most likely colder than average, and we will have more systems. Now, as I mentioned during the video, if you joined us late, we're not going to see those huge nor'easters, most likely, that drop 1, 2, even 3 feet of snow, portions of Boston, up into Albany, up into Bangor, but we will see more systems than a lot of the couple previous years. So most likely we'll see several 3 to 6, 6 to 10 type snow events, and you should be able to get to at least around average snowfall, if not a little bit above in spots.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. All right, well, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show. Again, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us tonight. It's one of the biggest events we have of the year. I'm going to turn off this graphic because there's a lot going on in that background. There we go.
How do you like the snowfall
Yeah, you like
in the
the snow? Do you like that?
How's
It's a nice touch, isn't it? It's awesome. It just kind of puts you in the mood, you know. We just need a nice little fire and some cocoa now, maybe for next year.
I like the way you think.
So there we go.
That's great.
The fireplace might be a fire hazard, though, so we may have to forego that.
Good old digital fireplace builders. I hear they come in handy. We'll just have a little automated one there.
Oh, there we go. We can do that. There we go. Again, thank you guys for joining us again. This has been a ton of fun for us. It's been all new this year with the whole format, actually. We did a whole format change with it this year, so it's been all new and exciting. We're excited to really come out and bring this to you guys, and to also be able to do this live Q&A right afterwards. Who does that? Nobody on TV is going to answer your question live. Why? Because
not
they
for like
can't.
40 minutes or so.
No,
That's
and
pretty good.
Don't call the weather department, the TV station. Don't bother the guy. He's busy. He can't take calls all night. He really, really can't.
Yeah, these guys on TV are incredible. They do a lot of good work for us, but we just want to be able to try to cater to everybody out there that is interested in NeoWeather and wants to answer or ask them a couple of questions too.
Absolutely. And of course, if you do plow snow in the wintertime, if you are a snow and ice management company, a landscaper that does snow plowing in the winter, anything like that, check out our website, neoweather.us. Click the consulting link at the top right, and you can get some information about our company and what we could do for you to help save you a little bit of time and money in your operations this winter.
And of course on neoweather.us you can get all the other weather information you need and some articles on upcoming storms or pattern changes, anything that you want there. And also we have Ohio and Michigan coverage that's a little bit more specific. We have a social stream that breaks down local weather conditions for that area. And of course, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube,
all those good ones there. Absolutely, and definitely give us a follow. Let your friends and family know to give us a follow and a like as well. We'd really appreciate that. And with that, we're going to sign off for the night for our 2017-2018 winter forecast. Thank you so much again for joining us. It's been a blast. We hope to do it again next year. And I hope everybody has a safe and happy evening.
Have a great night, guys.
See ya.